Thank you everyone for joining us. So I am excited to launch our Cast On KAL Tips meeting for and I'm not entirely certain how you pronounce it, Anna, Minthe or Minth?
Mint, yeah.
Yeah, Minth. That's what I thought, but we've been going back and forth trying to make up our minds. And of course, none of us would Google it, which is kind of funny. But this is our first session for the Minth pullover, aka sleeveless sweater or top, depending on where you come from in the world. So I've had some very interesting emails about that terminology recently. I thought that was quite fun. As a matter of course, in here, we're going to give you guys time to unmute and ask any questions that you would like. But we're going to begin with Anna introducing herself and telling us a bit about her work and the development of this top. And if she has a few things to mention, that would be absolutely lovely in terms of anything that she wants you to watch out for. And, just little tricks and tips, pointers, that sort of thing. After that, some of the staff and I have come up with where we want to point out areas in the pattern just for you to pay attention to as well. This is a really approachable and well-written pattern, but if you are a newer knitter who has approached this, we just want to give you a few little places where we can help you over a little bit of a step so that you know what's going on in that section of the pattern. So like I say, super well written, very approachable. I believe I will be able to watch Scandinavian Noir with subtitles and still be able to knit this. So that is a fabulous project. And of course, we will be done the KAL right in time to start wearing it if Alberta weather cooperates. Anyone who is joining us from other places will probably be able to wear it a little sooner, but you never know here. And then the last thing that we will do in the Zoom here is we are going to draw a nice little prize. So we're going to draw a gift certificate at some point here, and I'm not telling you when because I am a naughty creature, but it's always a nice little reward for the people who join us on the Zooms for the KALs. So it's something that I really enjoy doing because I like to give people presents. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Anna Daku, our designer, to this Zoom. And Anna, we would love to hear all about you and your beautiful top. And I am going to spotlight you so everyone can see you.
Okay. So my name is Anna, and I live east of Edmonton. I don't think I recognize anyone here, but if you have test knitted for me, just give me a little wave. Sometimes I have a hard time remembering people from names. I'm used to their Instagram account or their Slack handle. So, um, yeah. I have been doing knitwear design for a very long time, but really putting serious effort into it for the last 7 years now. So I generally publish my patterns independently, primarily through Ravelry, also my website, but honestly, I prefer if you buy it through Ravelry. It's just simpler that way, bookkeeping and payment wise and all that. Um, but also I submit designs to magazines and publications. So sometimes you'll see my designs there. Like I have one that is in the newest Lina magazine book, the 52 Weeks of Sweaters. One of my designs is in there, which is exciting. And then I have another couple coming out this year in magazines. Yeah, so I love knitting, obviously, we all do, but I love the designing aspect of it. And there's just something about it that tickles my brain in the right way. So I really love to work in the grid that is knitting square by square and creating new shapes. And I really enjoy sweater design, how to construct them. And part of that is summer tops. My first successful, I would say, design and one that kind of really pumped my tires to keep pursuing this was actually a summer top called the Kenosi Tank. And my summer tops have done surprisingly well, considering like I don't usually think that people knit a lot in the summer, but apparently they do because my summer tops have usually been fairly successful. So I usually try to do a summer top once a year. And last year I submitted a design proposal to Ancient Art Yarns, and they found a spot to publish the Minthe top. So it is a fingering weight design. I think you probably have seen the pattern information, but it does uses a simple lace just in the front and the back. It is fairly simply constructed. It's just the increasing lace panels, because it's worked top down, could be a little bit tricky. So I wouldn't say it's a beginner pattern, but I think if you are determined and willing to try new things, that a beginner and advanced, or like an adventurous beginner, could definitely take it on. Yeah, so you start in pieces. I really like to make summer tops that have wide straps. Personally, I always wear a bra and I don't like seeing bra straps, so I always create my summer tops with significant strap widths. And this one also has a high back, so it has a lot of coverage there. So that means that you're basically creating a back neck like you would a sweater. So I started the top with the back, and there's two straps that you cast on and you shape the neckline, and then you join them together, and then you do a similar system for the front, but you're also working the lace while you're doing that. So you will be increasing in lace, but there's charts for that and instructions row by row. So you just have to follow the pattern, and it should be fairly simple. And then all the edging is the armhole edging, and the neckline edging is just simple stockinette, which just rolls and creates a nice little finish. And then the bottom, the lace goes right to the bottom of the top, and you work a section of ribbing outside of these lace panels so that it's a nice clean finish. I don't know if I wanted to jump right into that top, but I wanted to say that I have my first teaching gig this year coming up at the Prairie Fiber Festival, and I just learned that that was accepted. I've never taught before, so this will be an adventure, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm going to be teaching on finishing techniques, and so ways to make your garments look a little bit more professional, because a lot of times you'll put all this effort in, spend a lot of money on really nice yarn, and then the way it's finished can kind of make it obvious that it was handmade. But if you know some techniques, you can really make it look very professional and clean. And yeah, people will ask you where your top was from instead of asking if you made it. So that's always a nice compliment when people can't tell that you made it. So I hope if anyone's going to Prairie Fiber, they might, it's the September one that I'll be teaching at. You might come and join me. Give me some support in my first teaching gig.
Well, I think that probably, Anna, you should send me some information and we'll put it in the Ancient Arts newsletter, because we have quite a few subscribers in Alberta. And I think that's going to be a fantastic class.
Oh, great. Yes, I'd love to share it. I'm only accepting 20 people because I don't want to overwhelm myself, and I want to make sure that everybody gets the help they need. And I want to have some space for people to bring their whips in, and we can talk about how to finish them. So yeah, that would be great. I will send you that information.
Excellent. Well, it's really fun to hear about the design process. Can you tell us a little bit about your inspirations for this sweater?
Yeah, it was in response to your company's design call. So I don't really remember. It was so long ago, but to be honest,
Quite all right. So just to
but
let
obviously it
everybody
was a
else know,
response to something that you had asked for in that
yeah,
submission call. But
the call was about romantic garments, basically. Things that you would
okay.
want to wear if you were going to spend some time in a lovely cottage with a nice garden, perhaps, with
Yeah.
a certain significant other, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think my inspiration for the name was from the lace, because we have ripped it all out now, but we used to have mint in the garden. If you're a gardener, you know how it takes over. It's that lace motif reminded me of the flower head of mint. Yeah, I love mint in the garden, but we've now planted in pots instead of scattering it.
I know
So
just what
yeah,
you
that
mean.
was definitely where the name came from. And then I probably did lace on the front and the back in response to that romantic feel, and also giving it some A-line shaping so it's not very, it's fitted at the bust. That was the design intention, was fitted at the bust, but then loosen a little bit, not flowing, but yeah, a little bit loose and drapey at the waist.
Well, that's always the most comfortable type of sweater, I'd say, especially
Yeah,
when you don't know
definitely.
what the day is going to be like. And of course, in Alberta, especially Calgary, that is very much the case. So it's the perfect top because it's going to breathe a bit if you need it to, but it is also going to be very nice and comfy. So, yeah.
Yes.
And I do have the top here if there's anything that you want me to have a close look at. But yeah, I would say that it absolutely expressed the concept of romance. Interestingly enough, that design call, we had so many lovely submissions that we ended up breaking it into 3 different collections. So we had one on the original yarns, then we had another one that's coming out at the end of the month, and then we had 3 more on Socknado, and those ones are coming out in a staggered form so that, they kind of complement each other. So we have a sleeveless top, and then the next one will be a cardigan, and then we have a really nice stole. So you could kind of put them all together if you wanted to and have a nice little wardrobe that you can do some mixing and matching with.
Oh, pretty. I'm excited to see those.
Yeah. I was a naughty girl, and I'm pretty sure my design coordinator wanted to throttle me at one point in time because I was like, and now we're going to do double the number of pieces that we thought we would. And Anna has been incredibly patient with us because that ended up, it did mean that it pushed the release date on the top a little bit later than we had originally planned for. But I think in the end, it's the perfect time because this is when we start some of our spring knitting. And
Yeah.
I know I like to knit all summer long, but I will switch what I'm doing. No more cardigans, and that's where I go for sleeveless items. Okay, so is there anything else that you wanted to talk about in regards to the pattern? So we've heard about being careful with the lace and having a good look at that as we go through.
Yeah, I don't think so. There's the armhole shaping is specific to each size so that you get a good size, a good fit across all the sizes. So some rows you'll be like doing rapid increases at the armholes, but I think it's pretty straightforward in the pattern. Yeah, I don't
Excellent.
think there's a, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Anna. At this point in time, or if you're comfortable with it, what we'll do is we'll go through some of the places that the staff and I have identified a few things that we wanted to just bring to people's attention. One of them is that there is something that we will be correcting in the pattern, and people who watch this later don't worry about it. But we found some interesting things about formatting software. Again, it's a software update. So we did do an update right away this week. There was a couple of spaces that were left out of the pattern, which was very bizarre because they're in the original one. We fixed that, but in the writtens for one of the charts, there are 2 lines that are done with the double decrease with dashes between the parts of the double decrease, and then 2 lines where they're commas. So what we're going to do is put an update out that will then just standardize that because that can be a little bit confusing. I'm not quite sure why somebody changed it like that, but we're going to put it back the way it was originally written, which is with the dashes. So I just wanted to mention that. That actually is, let's see if I can find the written page so that anyone who has the pattern that they've printed now and don't want to reprint it can not worry about it. Can't find it. All right, well, suffice it to say, we have a tiny, tiny tweak, which is literally 4 dashes that we're going to put out on the pattern, and that will happen early next week. But there is no actual incorrect information in the pattern. It's just something that confused a new knitter by having dashes in one place and commas in another. So, yeah, it's the joys of working on these things. Anyway, so going through the pattern for this very pretty top, there are a few things that we just want for those adventurous beginners to mention. And one of the things is just to clarify how it's constructed. So I've had a few people who have asked me, is it bottom up or top down? Now, Anna has put a section in here that's really nice and clear about how it's constructed, and it is top down. The sweater starts with you doing the top and it's knit flat. So the front and the back are both knit flat, and they're done separately. And the same thing with the two straps is you're going to knit the two straps, and the straps are the pieces that go over your shoulder, because again, we've got various different backgrounds here. You will connect those up in the sweater, and then once you have the front and back knit so that you get down to the armhole. So when we look at our friend, the original sweater, we're going down to the armhole bottom here. So this is where we are. And that's where they cleverly get joined in the round, and then the rest of the sweater is knit in the round. So for those who are a little unclear on how the sweater is constructed, the top is done flat, and then they will be connected together, and then there's a little seam on the shoulder.
Caroline,
And for those who,
when
yes.
you're showing us the sweater, can you focus on you? Because all I'm seeing is Anna.
Oh my God, I'm still spotlighting Anna. Sorry. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay. Remove the spotlight. And I will now remember to switch it around as needed. Okay. Good Lord. These menus are just giving me a fit. Okay, let me hold it up again. So this is the armhole of the sweater here. So the sweater is constructed with, you see the front there, and there's the back. Those are knit flat, and they are joined later at the shoulder with a seam. For those who don't like seams, this is actually a really smart way to construct a sweater, because this gives structure to the top of the shoulder of the sweater. So you'll initially knit down the front and the back to the bottom of the armhole, and that's where it's joined in the round. So that gives you an idea of how the structure is done on this sweater. So it's not knit completely from the top down. It's knit flat in two pieces. They are then connected, and then you knit down to the bottom of the sweater here, all the way down to this lovely bit of ribbing here. And that is done in the round. So you get the benefit of both worlds, the structure of a flat knit garment and the ease of an in the round garment. And then again, there is a little bit of shaping, as Anna mentioned, and you can see that it's very gentle. There's not a lot here. Wow, this is doing crazy things to me. I swear I have no control over the zooming. That's just fascinating. So you can see that little gentle shaping along the side there. And that just gives it a little bit of ease around the waist and hips, which makes it a little bit more comfortable. And it's a little more flattering for a lot of us too. So the shaping and how it's constructed is on the top of page 3. And then the other thing that I want to draw your attention to on page 3 is that Anna has included a link for how to seam live stitches. So there is a video that you can go and watch when you get to that part of the pattern. I also wanted to mention, keep an eye out for, in the stitches and abbreviations, how the stitches are worked. So every designer will choose how they execute things. Sorry, I just got distracted in the chat. Kathy McKay has said page 13, the slip 2, knit 1, pass stitch over. That's the little problem child on page 13. Like I say, the actual stitches are written correctly. It's just in 2 lines they have commas, and in 2 lines they have dashes. We will standardize that. Designers choose how stitches are actually worked, and there can be multiple ways to work certain stitches. So just make sure that you read through that and use the method that the designer has used in the sweater, because that's sometimes very important to how lace behaves. And a center double decrease that's done as a knit 3 together will not look at all like this particular double decrease where you're slipping 2 stitches, knitting 1, and passing the stitches over. So that's just something to watch out for in any pattern that has lace. And it can definitely cause issues if you decide to just do the one that you like the best, because sometimes things don't line up. And in this particular lace, those lovely mint flower shapes are very much affected by how you do that center double decrease. So I just wanted to mention that because not everyone is aware of that. Joining the straps on page 4, where you're forming your back, what you are going to do is you're going to leave 1 strap on the needles, and then you're going to cast on some additional stitches, and those stitches form the middle between the straps. So why you're doing that is you're doing the middle of the back or the middle of the front when you get to that part. And then what you're going to do is take the separate other strap and you're going to put it on the needles, and you're just going to start knitting back and forth on that. So we had someone come into the studio today who was a little bit unsure about that. So again, this is just something to clarify. trust the designer. She has written this clearly, and just do what it says, and it'll be like turning the heel of a sock for the first time. Magically, it'll work. But that's what you're doing, is you're connecting together two pieces with another piece in the middle, and then you'll be going straight down from there. Let's
It's
see.
like the underarm of a sweater,
Yes.
but bigger. You're just casting on
That's
more stitches.
exactly it. Yeah. So when you get to a sweater, the underarm, you always put a little bit of stitching. You cast on additional stitches under the arm. It's exactly the same idea. So if you've knit a sweater before, you'll be very, very familiar with that. Let's see. So same thing again on page 7, where you have the connection of the two straps, and then you're going to be able to knit the middle of the front by adding additional stitches in between the two straps. Also on page 7, there is the body, and you want to make sure that you place a beginning of round marker. Now, sometimes people get confused by this, because sometimes where you actually cast on is not going to be the beginning of the round later on. In this case, because you're connecting a front and the back, there is a marker placed that will be used to orient you throughout the rest of the sweater pattern. And it's very common that these are placed in the underarm stitches, and that's exactly what's going on here. So when you are connecting them, you will have underarm stitches, and the beginning of round marker will go smack in the middle of one set of them. Helpful hint: use a marker that's different from all the rest of them. I often do one that has a nice, pretty dangly something cute on it, because it's very, very easy to get confused and turned around before you've gotten all the way through your sweater, especially if there's a lace panel on the front and on the back. Sometimes it's hard to tell them apart while you're partway through, especially if your knitting is not blocked and it's doing a little bit of scrunching, because some lace patterns, for example, will do that. If you're knitting with little nettle, it's going to have an absolutely beautiful drape and hold its shape fabulously once it's blocked, but sometimes before it's blocked, it tends to pull in, and so it's a little hard to see what's going on. So like I say, make sure that you know that you're placing a beginning of round marker, and it's summarized on here, place BORM. That's what it means. That's beginning of round marker. And helpful hint: use something that doesn't look anything alike. In my case, it is my excuse to use something really pretty by Firefly Notes, and enjoy that every time I come to the end of the round. On page 8, we are creating our A-line shaping, and so you have increases along the sides of the sweater. So just past the increase round is a line saying repeat your increase round every 14th row 5 more times. Super important that you do that to get the shaping. It also is important for the math in the sweater and the rest of the sweater. So when you're looking at your total stitch counts, if you have forgotten your increases, then you're going to be off track and confused. Again, what you want to do is use your side markers to orient yourself for doing those. And what I usually do is I have a counter to make sure that I know that, okay, I'm clicking a counter every time I do a round. And of course, then I will make sure that I do my increase. Experienced knitters are going to be going, yeah, this is obvious. But again, if you're an adventurous beginner, you might not have done an A-line sweater. And so it's really easy to forget those increases. And even for some of us experienced knitters, it can happen occasionally. So yeah, been there, done that. And it's just important to remember them. If you're off by a row or two in those increases, the sweater will survive, and so will you, and no one's going to notice. So that's one of the things about knitting that's really lovely, is that some of us are extreme perfectionists, but knitting is incredibly forgiving. And if you are slightly off on something, you can usually bring it back to where it needs to be, and no one will ever know, including you later on. So I know that I knit a shawl last year, and I know there are 3 errors in that shawl. And actually, some of them are pretty dramatic, but even I have trouble finding them. So again, if you miss little things like this, you'll survive. For less experienced knitters who are worried about working lace, that sort of thing, there is a thing called a lifeline, and I highly recommend that. A lifeline is just a thin string of some sort. People will use unwaxed dental floss or some sort of slippery thin yarn. And what you do is you just take a needle and you run it through the stitches on your needle, and then you just leave it there. If you've made a gigantic mistake, you can then take your garment or shawl or whatever it is actually off of the needles, and you can rip back to where that lifeline is. Make a note on your pattern where you did it, because then you'll know what row you're on. And it's very easy to pick the stitches back up because they're held on that lifeline. So sometimes if I'm knitting lace and I plan on watching something on TV, or maybe I'm going to be doing it at a stitch group where I like to chat, I'll put lifelines in, because if I make a mistake, I can either drop the whole thing back to the lifeline, or I can drop a section back and just correct it for there. But it's a way to make sure that your stitches don't ravel down further than you want, and it makes them very easy to keep track of, especially with some laces when you have knit two togethers and all of those sorts of things. If you've dropped down, it's hard to pick them up because it's a little bit difficult sometimes to identify where the yarn overs are. So that's just a little trick I wanted to mention, because while this is a very approachable pattern, it is still a lace pattern. And that's one of the things that will make it a lot easier if you're worried about, I might make a boo-boo. And I will tell you that in brioche, I cannot do it without lifelines. And the brioche design that I did a few years ago would have as many as 4 or 5 of them left in, because you never knew when you were going to actually have to go back further than you thought you were. And it serves me right for doing too many increases and decreases in the same thing. Okay, let's see, what else have we got here? And I do want to credit Christine for giving me some really good notes on things to keep an eye out for, because she works a lot with our beginning knitters that come into the studio, and so she had some really good advice. Okay, that's one thing she mentioned here is on the bottom of page 8, there's information on how to do a cast on, but also there's a place where you're going to be doing some binding off. And so follow what's written in the pattern here. She's given you a really good bind off. And again, a designer who knows what they're doing, like Anna, will give you a bind off that will give the right structure to what you're doing. So if you need something that's elastic, they'll use an elastic bind off. In this case, this needs some structure, so you'll want to use the bind off that's listed in the pattern. So aside from that, pretty much everything has been covered in terms of what we thought we wanted to tell you about at the start. I would read through the entire pattern and just make sure that you're familiar with the flow of it. But if you remember that you're knitting that top back and that top front and then connecting them later, that will make the whole pattern flow quite nicely for you. So there's not a lot of hopping around in this one. I know I was looking at another sweater pattern recently and going, whoa, this is all over the place. But this one is very sequential and easy to follow. And then
One
the
thing
charts.
I just remembered, one thing I just remembered when you were talking there, and I can't see it in the pattern, so maybe I'm confusing it with another one of mine, but I think there is a potential for the front and the back to be on different rows when you join them, like the lace pattern. So once you get to that point, you've been doing the lace for a long time, so it should be pretty simple for you to continue in pattern. But just to note that you might actually be on a different row of the lace for the front panel versus the back once you join them. And you just need to continue in the pattern for that panel.
That's a really good tip. That actually can happen in quite a few things, including, even weirdly enough, sometimes shawls. So that's a really good thing to watch for. Patterns will often say continue in pattern, but that's something to note down, what row of continuing in pattern that you're actually doing. So thank you very much, Anna, for pointing that out. I didn't pick that up in here, but I've also not knit through that part yet. So just in case, it's a really good tip.
After the join straps to form front on page 7, I do say note which lace pattern row you last complete so that you can continue in pattern later. I don't say anywhere, I don't note that it could be a different row for front or back. Usually I do say that if that's a potential, just to note that. I don't see that anywhere.
No.
So maybe that's not a concern for this one, but just, yeah.
But it's still actually a really good note. It's about middle of the page for everyone who is following along. And that is a really good thing to mention. That is one that you definitely want to keep track of. And whether you're using Knit Companion or a printed pattern or whatever, just make sure that you put a note on there where you are. And if you're me, you will absolutely forget and have to go and figure it out later if you don't. So I love that tip. Very helpful. Okay, so Amanda, you have cast on. Have you got any advice for the people in the KAL? Amanda is one of our wonderful staff here.
Yes, I'm about this far in, so
hang on.
I'm not quite at the armhole shaping, almost there. No, so far I haven't come up to anything that has been too tricky. Like
Amanda, you're still muted.
No, she's not.
No,
I can't hear her.
But yeah, I haven't had anything pop up. I find the lace, once you get into it, it's quite fluid and you get used to the pattern and the repeating. I think once you get far enough into the lace as well, it's easy to see where your little mint leaves are supposed to end up. So I would just say, like, make sure you are looking at your knitting. I think sometimes it's easy to get into the routine of just knitting, following the pattern, but definitely take time to make sure that your things are lining up properly, because it's easy for it to get kind of off a little bit, and then you're like, oh, my stitch count's off at the end, and it should clue in pretty quickly once you are paying attention to that. But no, other than that, it's been very enjoyable, kind of a nice, relaxing, but still something that keeps your brain going with the lace pattern.
Excellent. Thank you, Amanda. Kathy, you have a question?
I do have a question about the, right at this point that you're at, the backwards loop cast on. I've never done that before. And so this is where I am in the project. After I finished doing the backward loop cast on, when I knit the next row, it was really loose. And
Yes,
as I'm
that's
proceeding now, I've got these little loops. They're almost like little picots all across the. I noticed that isn't on yours. Did I do
Well,
something?
it was on mine before I picked up the neckline. It should, once you block it and then you pick up your stitches for the neckline, it
It'll
kind
straighten
of
out.
figures itself out. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. That makes me
Yeah,
happy.
it looks great. Your
Yeah,
skirt
it's
looks great.
this yarn. I think this is the first time I've had this particular yarn, and it's awesome. I'm doing two of these
excellent.
at once
What are you
because I
working
owe
with?
people some sweaters. So I'm doing two of these in parallel. It's like make sure I've got counters everywhere, but so far so good. Okay, so this will work itself out when I block the project.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
I can give you a little more information about backwards loop cast-ons. So they are both beloved and hated because they are cast on where the yarn doesn't stay evenly distributed, and it can be slid from stitch to stitch to stitch, and they will look kind of wavy once you have cast on and you're working down. They do block out well, and the yarn will normally redistribute itself among the stitches quite evenly, but while you're working them, they are rascals and can drive you nuts. One of the tricks with them is that when you do the backwards loop cast on, pull the loops on your needle quite tight, and that'll help you control it a little bit better. Using a sharp needle when you do the first row after that definitely can be of assistance, but it's just going to move around and you will be just fine. What we saw there when you held yours up, it'll be fine. So I agree, it'll just block out. And in the original, again, that disappears. One of the things about picking up for that neckline is that even if it's a bit wobbly, once you pick up, that part isn't seen anymore. So yeah, but it is the bane of the existence. And I will mention that Stephen West does something really interesting with it and often uses it as a make one in his shawls. And I'm like, works really well, super annoying.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So that was a great question. Does anyone else have any questions at this point in time? I'm seeing lots of knitting. So if we don't have questions, that would mean that we could do our draw for a $35 gift certificate. And I think I'll have Amanda look into that and use a random number generator behind the scenes while we answer Catherine's question.
Hi. It's about the yarn. I'm using the little nettle, and you say on your website to alternate skeins when you're using your yarns, but this is kettle dyed, right?
So you'll
do I
find that
need
most
to do I need to alternate skeins?
That's a really good question. You'll find that most hand dyers will suggest that you alternate skeins, and even some commercially dyed yarn, they'll suggest that if it's not an even colorway. And the reason that you do that is that if there's subtle variations in a skein, what that will do is kind of blend them together. You don't have to, but once in a while, you can have a skein that will have like either a bit of a rogue dark spot, or it might have a rogue light spot. And so when you change from one skein to the other, what you're going to get is a distinct line on the garment. And that can be absolutely infuriating if you're like me and it drives you bonkers. So alternating the skeins will solve the problem in terms of then it blends the two together. If you're like me and you hate moving from skein to skein to skein, the other thing that I have done, and it really does help to minimize that, is I might knit, say, 2 centimeters with one skein, 2 centimeters with the other, because then I'm not constantly having to twist my skeins every time that I change rows. So you can change them every row, alternating them, or you can do them every 2 rows, or in this sweater, looking at the gauge, you could do it as often as every 6 rows. And it will just minimize that little having to pause and change from one ball to the other. It is a decent idea, like I say, to just prevent the idea of something that's going to cause a line later on. If you're using a multicolored colorway, it will average the color. So what it'll do is it'll, again, remove the potential for possible pools of color. I'm going to spotlight myself and hold this up. Okay, so when we look at this beautiful original sweater, do you see that little bit of variation in the yarn?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you get from kettle dyeing. And when you alternate the skeins, that little variation is averaged out. And so then the sweater starts looking, would you stop moving, camera? Then the sweater starts looking very even and you don't get any lines from one skein to the other. And this sweater is definitely really well done that way. It doesn't have a distinct line where there's a change in the skeins. So that's why it's suggested on the website.
So that sample was knit alternating skeins, was it?
We would have to ask Anna about that.
I don't think I did. I don't remember alternating.
Well then, go me as a dyer.
But that's the Socknado, right?
Well.
I'm looking to see what you did. It's Socknado, and Socknado and Little Nettle, it's the same thing. No, you did not alternate skeins, so you didn't have to. You are always able to...
I think I might not bother.
Yeah.
You're always able to just go for the gusto, and hand-dyed yarn, even if there's a line, it's not always a disaster. And I will say that if you had a terrible, terrible pool where no lady wants it, if you send it to me, I will over-dye it for you. I've done that for people. It was not my yarn. I have over-dyed more Madeline Tosh than I want to tell you. But, you know, if there's a disaster, I don't want you to lose the fruits of your labor. And I'm probably going to regret putting this on YouTube later, but I just would feel sick if your sweater wasn't working for you. So, yes, it can be fixed if worst comes to worst. So that was a great question.
I just wanted to pop out, so I thought I would say goodbye.
Thank you so much, Anna. We really appreciate you taking your time to join us for this. And we're very excited to continue the knit along. I'm sure you will start seeing these popping up on social media, and we will definitely have a hashtag so that you can find them. And if anybody tags Anna, I'm sure she'd love that.
I would. I really would. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have fun knitting. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Amanda, do you have our winner for us?
I do. So the random number generator has decided that Barbara Lee gets the gift certificate.
Congratulations, Barbara. So what we're going to do is you are going to email sales@ancientartsfiber.com. We have your name written down, and then one of our staff will arrange the gift certificate for you later.
Great. Thank you very much.
I was going to say something brilliant as well, but yeah, congratulations. Do be aware this is not your last chance to win. I always like to give away multiple prizes during a knit along, and so there will be 2 other gift certificates drawn in general. In order to enter to win those gift certificates, we just ask that you either post on social media so we can see your progress. It does not have to be a finished item. You can post as many times as you want. Each post is an entry. You can do this on Instagram. You can do this in our Facebook group. If you comment on one of our posts with this KAL, then I will find it there and add it in. You can also go to our Ravelry group, where I believe that the one and only amazing Christine is going to keep her eye out for anything there. And you can also, if you don't use social media, just feel free to email them to us, because we will definitely count that as an entry as well. Kathy is giving me great advice on the auto frame my video here. That will be great about the camera spinning around because, again, it didn't used to do that. I have used this camera before and it never did any of this nonsense. I was enjoying that slightly, but I'm sure for the rest of you, this was a little bit dubious. I tell you, this software updated today. What is coming to this world with this AI nonsense? Anyway, congratulations, Barbara. Then last but not least, we will have another Zoom for this KAL. And if you have questions in between this Zoom and the next one, feel free to contact us. You can email us, you can call us, you can come into the studio, anything like that. I've got fabulous staff who will be more than happy to sit down with you and help you with any questions that you've got. And of course, I will be as well, but sometimes I'm hiding in the back doing things with dye. Last but not least, the last Zoom for the KAL, we will also be doing a gift certificate draw. So again, if you attend and show us your work in progress, we will be more than happy to enter you in that draw. And if you're wondering why gift certificates and not items, it's because people who live far away are able to enter just as well as people who are local, because sometimes you don't know what you want at the time, or maybe I'm going to give you a skein of red yarn and you don't like red. So that's why we've moved to gift certificates instead of items. So Christine, is there anything that you would like to offer as advice?
No, not that I can think of. I think you covered everything with the different items that we looked at in the pattern. So I think, yeah, I want to see everybody's colors. What's everybody knitting? Oh, nice. I like that one.
Maybe what we should do is go through one by one. Would you guys like that if I spotlight each one of you, or would you rather just hold them up? Suddenly occurred to me no one can answer because they're muted. All right, I'm going to go through and spotlight. If you don't want me to spotlight, then just turn your camera off. All right. So what do we have here?
This is Little Nettle Soft. I've knit with it before. I like it a lot. And it's a spring type green. I just thought it was so appropriate. So
that's
first
fabulous choice.
One is wound up, that's all.
Excellent. All right. Catherine, are you willing to be spotlighted and show us your color? Excellent.
There's a double for 720. So
this is Little Nettle. There's my swatch.
We've got
beautiful.
And, you know, there is a little bit of variation, but not that much. So I think I'm going to risk not alternating skeins. Live it up, hey?
Yeah.
Live on the wild side.
You'll find too, like with our colorways, there's very few of them that are solid because to me, that's kind of boring. I like to have my color change a little bit while I work with it. And so that was a choice I made many years ago with our dye styles, was to keep a little bit of interest to them. So you should be okay with that. I can't imagine that it would be a problem.
Great. Thank you.
It's really the strongly variegated colors where it's more likely to give you an issue, but you never know. Kathy, are you willing to show us your color? Excellent. I'm going to spotlight you. Ooh, softer side of linen. Is that it? Or possibly Irish linen? You are muted, so we can't hear you.
Softer side of linen.
Excellent.
I know somebody else is doing that as well.
I love that. Yeah, Barbara is doing that one as well. All right. Kim, did you want to show us? Thumbs up? Okay, just a moment here. I'll spotlight you.
No, I'm doing Park Ink Circle, I believe.
Well, you are getting a long ways into that, aren't you?
Well, I did the swatch first before I get the top. So a little bit behind.
Nah, I don't think anybody's behind. I mean, let's face it, I haven't even started mine because I got sucked into sock madness and, you know, apparently are knitting gigantic socks instead. Eventually, I say. That's wonderful. Thank you, Kim. All right, Barbara, we know you're doing softer side of linen, but did you want to show us?
My swatch and my cast on of the two straps is out in the other room, but yeah, softer side. And
excellent.
Just a nice light color. I'm really looking forward to wearing the sweater in the summer.
Fantastic. Well, I am loving the colors. Fran, did you feel okay about showing us your colors?
Yes, sure. I live in Calgary, so I came in to pick up my yarn with my lovely friend who didn't want to join the KAL, but I still like her anyway. And I debated, oh, well, maybe a spring color, because I picked this one off the website. And actually, I absolutely love this. It's cypress and it's little nettle soft. And this swatch is so petable. So
Well, and it's going to get nothing but better. I was petting,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm not sure I should admit this on video or something, but I was petting Amanda's sweater recently. She knitted a year ago in Nettle Soft, and it was amazing because, like all plant fibers, it gets softer with wear. So
yeah,
I am really glad you're liking that one.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I'm not worried about colors. I love a little heathering anyway. And when I look at skeins, they look very uniform to me. So I'm going to just knit and have a good time.
Excellent.
Good.
Thank you. Well, Christine, you and me are in the sock madness.
We are.
I'm going to spotlight you. And if you were going to cast this on, what color would you pick?
I would pick probably a pink because pink is my favorite color. Or I would go with softer side of linen because it would go with literally everything.
Oh, excellent choices.
Yeah.
I would have you'll notice that I have missed myself, and that might be intentional because I still have not figured out what color because I am that problem child. I'm like, I'm sorry, there are 300
we
to
have
choose
such
from.
a selection, it's hard to pick.
It is. Rosanna, do you want to share yours?
So I haven't cast on yet as I was working on other things, but I have chosen Summer Wine as my
nice
nettle, and I also went with the nettle. I love knitting with the nettles. So
I will admit that we did this sweater, and thank you for letting us know about that. We did this sweater in Socknado because Socknado is such a nice sweater yarn, but then there's also Little Nettle, and for summer garments, Little Nettle is really, really nice because it's got that heat transfer breathability element to it. So I think that's part of my problem on why I haven't decided what I want to do yet is that, which yarn base first, and then second, which color. But I will say I really love the colors that you guys have chosen. If I had to choose, I think I might actually go with homemade hot chocolate because I've not knit myself anything in a nice brown. And I'm trying to think if I've ever done it. And I think the closest I came to was cinnamon toast, which is a much lighter brown. So I think a homemade hot chocolate would be a lot of fun. As to which of the two yarns, this remains a mystery. Alrighty, do we have any other questions or things that we would like to bring up? I'm not seeing any hands. Well, then that means that it's time to let you guys go back to your knitting. But before we do, I really want to thank you for joining us in this first cast on Zoom. It has been a lot of fun to do this and go through the patterns and see the colors that you're going to be making. And remember, at any time, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, we are always there for you and happy to help. We will be posting Amanda's progress because Christine and I are going to be trailing way behind. And I will be posting our socks, though, and they were in the newsletter. But anyway, Amanda will be sharing her progress, and it'll be very fun to see what she does. And just for those who aren't aware, Amanda's sweater color was chosen by poll, and she is also knitting cypress because of it. And Kathy, you have your hand up? Sorry, you're muted.
Sorry. What is the hashtag that you were going to tell us?
So the hashtag, and I did tag it on one of the posts, and I think I forgot to put it on the rest of them. So it's Minthe, Minthe, top, TOP, all in one word, and then KAL. So great question. Again, Kathy, you have saved my bacon, and I tell you, I'm going to go and use your advice in the chat about how to fix my ever-moving camera. Although I will admit, oh my God, it's staring at me and making colors. Anyway, so Amanda has also put the hashtag in the chat, so if any of you want to copy it, you can. And if you forget, I will start putting it in all of the posts now that I will be like reporting on the actual KAL progress. I think probably I didn't use it in all of them because I was thinking it would overwhelm that hashtag if I had nothing but don't you want to participate? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I really appreciate it. I wish you happy knitting, and I will rendezvous with you at the next Zoom and see where we all are, where we do some show and tell. In the meantime, have a great night, everyone.